The opinions and statements made by the guests of the Success in Practice podcast are their own, and I do not endorse or accept responsibility for their positions. Any information given by myself or the guests is educational in intention and not to be taken as medical advice. If you choose to act on the content involved in the podcast, you do so at your own risk. Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Success in Practice podcast. After a small break, I think we're back for season 2, so this has been great. My initial aim was to get to 100 episodes. We're somewhere, I think, close to 60, but I think it was a good place to have a little break and come back for season 2. So we're back for season 2. We've got some episodes already recorded and ready to roll, and we've also got a lot of people that are scheduled in to record. We'll be having some of the guests that we had in season 1 back on, and some new guests as well, but mostly new guests. But I think there was some episodes that really stood out and that I enjoyed talking to people, and they had a lot to share, and there was just some good chemistry, and I guess I'll be bringing those people back for another episode. I think it was just really enjoyable, and we'll do a round 2 with some of those people. Excuse me. I did want to just recap a few of the things that have been happening in the world of osteopathy since we did the last episode, and so I want to have a little chat about that. There's been some elections coming up for the Osteopathy Board of Australia, the Osteopathy Australia Board, I should say. It seems, I think, one of the board members is finishing up their term, and there's an election coming up. So I would encourage people to put their hands up, especially those from New South Wales. I don't think we have a sitting board member from New South Wales at the moment. So I would encourage people to put your hands up and nominate for that position. I think Osteopathy Australia is a very much needed organisation, and we need that organisation to run as well as it could. And I think the place could be run a little bit better than what it is at the moment, to be honest with you. But having some fresh ideas there and fresh people to hopefully take it into a new direction would be something that is well needed. I know that there's a new board member just taking up a position at the moment, Heath, and Heath Williams. I wish Heath all the best. I think Heath's got some great ideas. He's come in, I know, wanting to reinvigorate some members that are no longer with the association, where they've kind of let their membership lapse, or for whatever reason they've thought that it wasn't a good investment. He's wanting to re-engage those people. I think that's a great idea. I think we did definitely lose some people, especially around COVID, for whatever reason that might have been, whether it was financial or whether it was based on the stance that was taken by the association. It's good to reinvigorate that membership and get that going again. I think also there's some positions available for the Osteopathy Board, or the New South Wales Council, I should say. There's a practitioner member position available there, so I would encourage people to look at that as well. And we've had some town halls happen, I think, across the country. I don't know the results of those town halls. I had spoken to some people that went to the New South Wales Town Hall. I don't think that was a big turnout there, and it seems like there will be a massive turnout to the Victoria Town Hall. And I guess that just shows the discrepancy and the difference between the two states in the kind of invigoration behind osteopathy. Obviously, with such a large population of osteopaths kind of centred in Melbourne and Victoria, it's clear to see why that state is somewhere where osteopathy gets pushed. Now, I grew up and kind of my osteopathy lifetime in its early stages was here in New South Wales and here in Sydney. And at that time, New South Wales was a very vibrant community for osteopathy, and it still is a vibrant community, but I think a lot of the practitioners here in New South Wales have just taken a bit of a step back, happy to concentrate on their own practices, because obviously we don't have a university course here that produces osteopaths, and we're not getting a lot of younger osteopaths through that are kind of reinvigorating the profession. So that's been a talking point for the first season, and I don't think I'm going to let up on that. I think the main talking point coming out of New South Wales should be that we need a course in New South Wales, especially in Sydney. It is the biggest market in Australia, and it's a shame that we are not exhausting all efforts to have a course there. At the very least, we should have some communication from the various stakeholders as to why there isn't a course, and are we actually communicating with universities? Are we lobbying? What are we actually doing? I have no idea. I still have no idea. I've spoken to people about it, and I guess the feedback is that it has to remain confidential for various reasons. But I guess I can't see why, the association or whoever it is that's doing this can't say to the members, well, look, we've put out feelers to X, Y, Z. We can't name the universities, but we have made certain approaches, and we're at stage 1 or at stage 2 or at no stage. At least then we know that approaches have been made, and if no approach has been made, we can ask the question why. And if approaches are being made and we're getting rejected, well, we need to then understand why we're getting rejected. And I guess universities are closing down. They're still open for business. They're still accepting courses. Courses are popping up for all different things. And so there's got to be a reason as to why we can't get a course in Sydney. And there's been a multitude of universities that have opened up. I mean, we don't have to go for a Tier 1 university. It's not like we need to be the top course at Sydney Uni. There's no reason why we can't look at various other universities down the hierarchy there. And so, yeah, it'll be good to get some communication on that. I always there's an open invitation onto this podcast from anybody from Osteopathy Australia that has any, influence or any kind of oversight over that particular pathway. I know there's an education committee there. And so if anybody from the education committee wants to come on the show and have a chat and let us know what's happening with that particular pathway, you're always welcome. It's an open platform. I will definitely ask you all the questions that I need to ask you, and you'll be given a platform to answer the questions as best as you can. And so, yeah, it'll be good to have that, and I will make sure that stays a part of the conversation. And so, I guess in saying that, some other news around the profession, we'd obviously like to see some more movement on the NDIS front. I don't think there's been some feedback to the association regarding that. It seems like for a program that's being tried to, they're trying to cull it down to reduce the spending, to reduce the funding. I find it very difficult that they're actually going to include more professions in that. And I guess I'll have a chat to my guest about that, because I think he was heavily involved in that process being set up. There's always we always see the announcement of more practitioners who are taking on advanced titling, and I guess there's a couple of stages there of having the advanced titling, of being an advanced practitioner. Look, I'm still not convinced about that particular program. I recently saw somebody that was barely 6 years out of university who's now an advanced practitioner. I'm not going to name names. It's not about the names. It's just about the actual, qualification. I think that has to be revisited and relooked at. And there is one guest that I am having on the show in a couple of weeks' time who I will talk to about it, because I don't think at heart it's a bad idea, but I don't think it's been implemented well, and we'll have that conversation and see where we come to with that. Although I don't see the association really changing their their stance on that, but we'll have a chat and see what comes of it. But yeah, so that's always happening. There's a few good courses about that people are teaching. I know Lisa De Stefano is coming back out in February next year, and that's through John Marshall. He's doing a great job in bringing her out. She's fantastic. I had a chance to see her earlier this year, and she's a wealth of knowledge. So if you get out to see Lisa in February in Melbourne, she comes out from the States, from Michigan State University, and she does a great job in teaching as well. So there's that. I think also there's the Osteopathy Summer School that gets advertised. Look out for that. That looks like a good program. And I think there is a summit. There's an Osteopathy Summit early next year, and I'd have to check up with Tim Taylor and see. He seems like one of the organisers there. So look that up. I think it's the Osteopathy Summit 2026. I know George Stillion is a part of that, so have a look into that. That'll be a good one to go into and attend. So hopefully more of that comes back, and more of the face-to-face learning comes back. I've taught a couple of courses this year. We taught over in Melbourne, the Gold Coast, and in Sydney. And one of the good things that came about from that was that someone from Brisbane actually saw what I'd done, and recently on this last weekend, I was flown out there to do an education course for his entire clinic, and that was a private kind of CPD thing that he did for his clinic. So grateful to him, and so more of that. I think we need more of that face-to-face learning, kind of reconnecting with osteopaths, other osteopaths getting together and doing that. I know Heath Williams has started a database for all of that, so if you can jump online, go to the Facebook pages of either Osteopathy Australia, or I think the business owners page, there might be a post there that would guide people onto how they can get onto that database. And so yeah, that's some of the news around the profession since we had a break. But now that we're back with a wonderful guest today. And so I want to introduce you all to Adam Pitt. Adam is an osteopath that is part of the UWS alumni, where I went to university. So I'm glad to have Adam here with me today. Adam is a 6-year university educated osteopath with a Bachelor's of Applied Science and a Master's in Osteopathy. He's registered with AHPRA, and is also a member of Osteopathy Australia. And I guess he worked in the clinic in Hobart many years ago, from what he tells me. It was a long time ago. But then after that, Adam founded Necessity Health and also Necessity Kids, which has gone on to be one of Illawarra's leading multidisciplinary allied health practices. He's the sole owner of both of those clinics, and he employs over 40 people of all different types of allied health, including osteos, physios, EPs, massage therapists, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and the list goes on. And so he kind of combines both the contractor and the employee model, and also the rental model there in what he does. Adam's passionate about providing really exceptional work environment for his team to have a dream job. So he's focused on making sure that his team are enjoying their job as health practitioners. He's passionate about helping people move well and feel great, and helping families thrive. And that's always, I think, a good way to build a practice is through families, you know. And he's done that very well. Excuse me. Adam is a highly knowledgeable practitioner with over 18 years of experience in that time. He is involved in further education in paediatric and obstetric osteopathy, dry needling, spent years mentoring many younger osteopaths as well. He's worked on multiple OA committees to help improve the profession, and I think in 2020 or 21, he was a finalist for Osteopath of the Year. Adam, thanks for being on the show, mate. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sami.
Mate, we'll get right into it. So I want to get a bit about. Excuse me. I want to learn a bit about your background, and I guess you as a practitioner.
Yeah.
Tell us about your story growing up, mate. Where'd you grow up? how did Adam come about kind of going to school? How did Adam come about going to school, going to university, and then what led you to osteopathy?
I was an elite gymnast as a kid, and I remember to this day feeling helpless as I'd wake up in agony at night because my legs or my body would be screaming in agony from the huge amounts of training that we used to do. And I remember my mum coming in the middle of the night and massaging my legs, and it kind of providing short-term relief, but nothing ever fixed it. I went to multiple people, and then this was Northern Beaches of Sydney, by the way. And then I saw Sarah Simpson-Goff. I don't know if any of you guys know her. She's an exceptional osteopath from Mona Vale. And she just, the way that I explain it in my memory is a feeling of like when you've got a pressure cooker and you release the valve, it just felt this amazing relief. And then osteopaths over the years were able to do that for me repeatedly with different problems. And everyone assumed I was going to be either a musician or an actor or something in the arts, but I shocked.
Why is that?
Oh, because I was in a band and I was also in a performance group as a kid. So I stopped doing gymnastics because it ended up just getting a bit too much, and the toll it was taking just wasn't worth it for me. So so everyone assumed I was going to do that, but I sort of shocked my family and said I want to go to uni and do science and study osteopathy. And at that point in time, pretty much every person I spoke to looked at me blankly when I said I'm going to go and study to be an osteopath. Imagine, like, if you're a few years before me, Sami, it would have been even worse for you. It's good to go to a barbecue now and have a significant portion of people have at least heard the word osteopathy, and even a decent portion of people actually know what an osteopath does or have seen one. That's been an awesome evolution to see and witness. So I kind of had this really clear vision as a 17-year-old that I wanted to be an osteopath, but I didn't want to stop there. As a 17-year-old, I had this really clear vision that I wanted to be an osteopath and an owner of a multidisciplinary practice that really helped people in multiple different ways. And I even kind of had this kind of quite specific vision of it being like an old building that was nicely done up. And it took a very long time. It took RMIT losing my application, which I thought for sure I was going to be admitted straight after school into the RMIT. So I thought I was moving to Melbourne. But the course changed from a double degree to a degree and a master's that year, and somehow I had applied for the old course and somehow my application got lost. So I did a year of exercise science at Wollongong instead, and then transferred to osteopathy at Western Sydney, or UWS back then. And so obviously, worked hard through uni, and then worked hard in my first job as an osteopath, and then started my own practice a few years later. And then 8 years ago, we bought a building and renovated it, and I kind of realised the dream of a 17-year-old. It'd been a long road, but it was, and there'd been some very big challenges along the way, and plenty of mistakes and plenty of lessons, and it was really cool to be able to get out of. To be honest, I'd been in a bit of a tunnel of like a long-term vision that I'd worked so hard for so long that it was actually a bit weird to kind of get to this point where I kind of like was actually able to look up and come up for air and realise that dream had become a reality. And then for me, life changed a lot in that time as well. We had kids, and so my focus kind of shifted a little bit as well at that point, because we'd gone through a period where we'd been told by teachers that my daughter was she confused them because she was super clever, but she wasn't picking up reading. And long story short, we had her investigated by an optometrist and found out at 5 that her vision was really, really poor. And that kind of really helped us piece a few puzzles together, because this was as she was heading into year 1 and she was really still struggling. She could read sight words, but it was as soon as you started making them a bit complex, she couldn't get them together. And the way that, so we optometrist gave her optical treatment, and then we also were told to see a speech pathologist, and the speech pathologist was able to identify that she'd missed some key phonics and building blocks in her learning that had meant that they were amazed by her, because what they'd worked out is that she couldn't actually see the board. So when she was learning, she would basically remember the shapes of words, and that would help her. That's how she read. So she had this incredible visual memory. And then we also they kind of said that it's not just that. There's also some potential neurodivergence there, and suggested that we get her assessed. And I rang and emailed every OT speech pathologist in the Illawarra, which is where we live now. And she'd been receiving speech pathology, but she needed an OT assessment. And we got nothing but answering machines or emails saying, go to our wait list, it's about a 12-month wait. Unfortunately, one of my friend's sisters was an OT in the Blue Mountains, and she was able to see her in the school holidays. And for me, it was this journey. It was very challenging to navigate, having a daughter with a disability that was then later diagnosed with also autism, and then to sort of try to navigate the whole NDIS system, and then to try to find services that in our local community was really, really hard. But I attribute my family and our relationship and how incredibly self-aware she is, and how amazing at communicating her needs and her self-awareness is just phenomenal. And I honestly attribute a lot of that to the work that the allied health team did for her early on, and they did for me as well. So for me, it was about learning about her brain and her neurodivergence, and how I can help her, and how to understand, and one of my best friends at the time was the director of a leading preschool in the area. And we used to talk for hours and hours about the gap between early childhood education and allied health. And so we decided to start Necessity Kids, and we started that as a 3-person partnership with an ex-Sydney Uni lecturer in speech pathology. And initially, I was kind of I brought the name and the brand and the logo and the local reputation and that sort of thing. But those guys kind of ran things initially. And then about a year ago, a bit over a year ago now, they approached me about buying their shares and being the sole owner, because they wanted to kind of, take their career in a different direction. And so I've done that. And now I'm the sole director of Necessity Kids and Necessity Health. And I see babies, because at the moment there's not really anyone else in our team that can. So, but other than that, I'm mostly non-clinical. And so I spend most of my time basically supporting both teams and helping build leaders and great practitioners, and that's what I'm trying to do anyway. And that's been a whole new chapter for me, and it's I'm really, really incredibly fortunate to have an amazing team across the board of just people that are really good at their job, but they're also really decent human beings that work really collaboratively together. And that's why I said, my goal is to create this kind of optimal work environment for everyone that works in my organisation. And it's about their dreams and their aspirations and helping them come true. And then it's about helping the individual with pain feel amazing, and it's about helping families through that journey to navigate. if they've gone through a similar sort of thing with me. It's about trying to, as I did, it's about trying to help make that journey easier and help provide tools and strategies to help local families like I was helped.
So, from what I understand, you've got kind of two branches, which is Necessity Health and Necessity Kids.
Yeah.
Although they're not kind of like physically separate.
Are they
physically separate?
Yeah, we've got 3 sites. So
okay.
Necessity Health has its own site, and then Necessity Kids has a whole like speech pathology site, and then a early intervention occupational therapy site.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's good because I think that's seems like you're very passionate from a very it comes from a place of experience. You know what you went through with your daughter.
Yeah.
Would have kind of made you go, hold on a sec. Why can't I get? If I can't get my daughter to see somebody in 6 months, geez, imagine how many people are struggling to do this. So, good on you for doing that. And so, look, I can empathise with what you said earlier about, you know, trying to tell people that you're going to be doing osteopathy straight out of high school and have them not knowing. I mean, that was 5 years after I did it, and you know, especially with immigrant parents, mate. You know, with a stick and a belt right next door. It's like, what are you doing? You know? So, but yeah, no, I get it. Back in those days, it wasn't well known. It's a lot more well known now. I mean,
100%.
you know, at the beginning of the episode, I talked about the boom in osteopathy down in Victoria, and I think we saw the golden era of osteopathy probably in the, you know, I think in the early 2000s. You know, from 2000 to probably 2010, when that course was pumping out students. I think we had this invigoration of students that was coming through, but we also had a whole bunch of experienced practitioners that just wanted to teach us, that just wanted to pass on that knowledge. And they were very passionate about the profession because it had given them so much, and they were really ready and willing and able to kind of pass that torch. And so I guess I want to take you back to that time, take you back to your university years. What really stood out for you, mate? What was the thing that made you really passionate about osteopathy? Like what sticks out in your mind as being some of the influential things, some of the things that you think were done very well, and that kind of said, you know, I want to kind of go on and do this really well?
It's interesting you asked me that question because I have tried to kind of look back now, knowing what I know now, and go like, what did Sarah do back then that was so effective, and what did the other osteos that I'd seen over the years do that was so effective? And I really feel like it's a major contributor. Is the hands-on element. You know, I find myself having a conversation regularly about manual therapy and hands-on treatment and how effective and amazing it can be. And I'm trying really, really hard to kind of get young physios and things to understand that if they really exclude that from their tool belt, that they're missing a whole world. I think looking back, it was the holistic hands-on physical therapy that was provided to me that was just such a profound feeling. And I think if I look back, it's like, I would say it was a lot of fascial work and a lot of kind of compartmental soft tissue work, and because I'm really hypermobile, which is, you know, probably why I did all right at gymnastics, you know. So it was never really about, and I was really, really strong. So I think the physios that I saw early on didn't know what to do with me because they would assess my range of movement, and I could do oversplits. You know, I could have one foot on a chair either side and go to the ground in any direction. I cannot do that to save my life now, but I could do that back then, and I could, you know, hold a plank for God knows how long. I was very, very strong, very, very flexible. So I think if you're very strong and very flexible, but you're in intense pain, a lot of practitioners go, I don't know, what do I do? And I find that even to this day, I'm treating athletes, or our team are treating athletes, and we're getting results that others aren't. And I would just simply put it down to that hands-on physical assessment and the hands-on treatment. I think for me, that's what drew me to it, and it's also kind of dictated how I practice as an osteo as well. Like remembering all of the things that have really worked for me as a patient, I definitely implement them. I even remember as a student doing a treatment where, receiving a treatment in the student clinic, and to this day, I remember another osteo, Sam, who I'm not sure where he was with your years, but I remember him doing like a really deep clavipectoral fascia release. And I was been killing at the time. I remember thinking, oh my gosh. And then having volleyball training that night and just feeling like my arm could move further back than it had ever moved before. And it's just that feeling. I can't explain it any other way than just a feeling.
Hello everyone. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. If you have received value from this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel on whichever platform that you are listening on. If any of the conversations have resonated with you and you feel that I can help elevate your practice, you can find me at successinpractice.net. That is, the Success in Practice program can be found at successinpractice.net. The Success in Practice program is the signature program that takes a practitioner who may be struggling with retaining patients. They may not be certain about building effective treatment strategies, and they may feel somewhat anxious and doubtful about what they are going to do with a patient. And they are not really accelerating in the real world of private practice. It takes this practitioner and it turns their careers right around to the point where the patients have an effective diagnosis and a real treatment plan that they can take home. Patients are happy to book in multiple sessions with you, and they are confident about your abilities. And more importantly, you now have direction and are confident about your own abilities. The program streamlines how you operate as a practitioner. Guys, you should have been taught this at university, but you weren't. You may have been practicing for the last few years thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a more effective way of engaging with patients and getting them results. Well, there is. And this is what the program delivers. Go to successinpractice.net and check out the options available to you. See where I can help you easily grow your patient list and finally earn the rewarding income that you deserve. For all the information on how you can reach me personally, check out the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find a link to the chat transcripts from these podcasts. These are valuable and a wealth of information. I really hope that you're enjoying the podcast. Guys, leave a comment if there's any questions on this episode, and please, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, right. I don't disagree there. I think having that hands-on element to our education was vital, and I don't think they would have done it any other way back then. And it seems like that we kind of, that 10-year period of that course. That course kind of existed and then ceased to exist. I don't like saying this, but probably at the right time, because there's a lot of pressure that was brought on universities after that time to kind of go down more of an evidence-based model that took away a lot of the hands-on, and not just the hands-on, but even just the philosophical approach to osteopathy. Why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind it? And using your logic and your principles rather than just trying to look at evidence and what the evidence says. And the more I look at evidence these days, the more I kind of just shake my head, because I saw something the other day come through about how cold and heat therapy has no impact on performance of elite level soccer players. And it was just an application of cold and heat after their training, and then they remeasured their, VO2 maxes and all that kind of stuff, 15 weeks later, and I was like, this is so vague. There's so many other variables to these players that you really think that cold and heat therapy is the only thing that's going to, and can you really say that is not going to be beneficial in an instance? I mean, you could say it's not going to be beneficial over 16 weeks, but I mean, in an instance, it's really hard. So I just see a lot of rubbish coming out. And this whole thing with peer reviews, like It's like, well, you review my paper and I'll review yours, mate, and we'll get into the journals, and everything's fine. And so I think, yeah, we need to kind of have a look at the evidence-based model, and does it really suit what we're trying to do. I'm not saying that there's no place for evidence, but I think it's better to be evidence-informed.
Yeah,
solely
I love
evidence-based.
that. I love that term, evidence-informed practice. It's what I base the whole sort of particularly necessity health on, is that there is evidence that shows that the hands-on treatment improves range of movement and improves pain, and then when you do that in conjunction with a structured exercise-based plan, that's going to be going to give the patient the best results for a huge range of problems. And that's where I honestly believe that we've got sort of hands-on sort of more manual therapy focused, so osteos, massage, myotherapy, things like that. But when you combine that with an exercise physiology team in a gym, that's where I feel like you can get the exceptional results in that kind of like truly multidisciplinary, or even like
look,
the idea of a transdisciplinary approach.
I would probably agree somewhat, but I think even when it comes to EP, exercise physiology, or whatever you want to call it, rehabilitation, I don't think we've done a great job as a profession of taking that and putting it through the lens of osteopathy. It's like we're being osteopaths, and then we're just handing that over to the EPs.
Well, no, that's not what I do. So I work closely with our EP team, and I've worked in our EP team when there was about a 6-month period we were down an EP. So I spent a significant portion of my time in the gym, and I really tried to and had some success in bringing that osteopathic lens to the situations. Good EPs come out with a really good foundation on kind of tissue rehabilitation and things like that. But an example would be, I just one that sprung to my mind was a carpal tunnel case that I was in the gym and one of the other EPs was managing, and I talked them through working through the thoracics and the rib cage and the clavipectoral area and the neck and the shoulder girdle, and doing neurodynamic works. And none of that, they just kind of looked at me with like a mind explosion moment, because that had never been explained to them. The whole concept of neurodynamics and the whole pathway and the whole mechanical influences and other contributing factors, they were very much kind of hand rehab focused. And so I feel like, that this is where if you have that truly collaborative approach, you can have someone present to an osteopath who sees them a few times, then they can start moving and feeling better. And then if they can then sort of give some guidance to the EP and work with the EP team, that's where I find the magic happens.
Yeah, look, you're not wrong, and I guess the good thing with what you've got is that, excuse me, it's your clinic. You're the kind of, and I'm not saying that you're a dictator there, but you're the kind of the head clinician there, so to speak, and so they're kind of bound to listen to you. But I guess if you're an osteopath and you're working in a multidisciplinary, you're working as an osteopath rather than as a clinic owner, trying to kind of implement your own osteopathic lens within that team ends up being a harder hill to climb.
Yeah.
And I would just say that I think as a profession we need to look at that model and have a better understanding of what we're trying to do and how to do it, so that we can have a conversation with EPs. So look, at the moment our education, our knowledge base, unless you've done specific study in I guess strength systems and rehabilitation and so forth, I don't think our education is enough to kind of sit there and sit at the table and kind of have a go, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. And so we need to do better as a profession in that sense, because I think we don't have a model at the moment. I mean, it seems like that physiotherapy is moving in that direction.
Yeah.
It seems, having a conversation with Natalie Perkins on the podcast a couple of months ago. You know, she's quite disappointed that physiotherapy's lost its hands-on approach and is losing that. And I think chiropractors now are just doing their manipulations, and they're teaming up with EPs, and you know, you do the manipulations, you go to the gym, and so they've just taken that model and pushed it together. And we don't want to do that. I don't think we should do that as osteopaths. I think, like, if the osteopathic principles work, then they work across the board. Like, if the principles work with treatment, with, you know, we always say that we're not tied to manipulation, to cranial. We're not tied to this. We're not tied. It's more of a system of thought. You know, when I speak to osteopaths and I ask them about their view, and they say, well, it's more about how we think than what we do. I'm like, well, if that's correct, then how you think about rehabilitation should also work. If you think like an osteopath and you apply that to, let's call it building tissue resilience, you know, then if osteopathy works, then it should work with rehabilitation. And so we need to, I think, sit at a table and come together and have some kind of maybe position statement or something that guides what we're trying to do, and then that should filter down to the universities, and then they should be teaching that as a model. Because the good thing about it is because we don't have a model, it's a really good opportunity to kind of put one together and to kind of say, well, this is how we think as osteopaths with regards to rehabilitation. Look, I want to ask you about your time as a young practitioner, I guess, and your early influences. What happened after you left university? I mean, you're in New South Wales, you're in Sydney, and it seems like you grew up on the Northern Beaches. Is that correct, Adam?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. Yep.
So you grew up on the Northern Beaches. I guess the temptation or the smart thing to do was to go back to your home base, or work from there, or work somewhere there. What happened when you graduated? Where'd you go? And what you do? And what were you influenced by?
Well, my big influence was I met Karen, and as a 16-year-old, Karen was this, you know, pretty blonde from Wollongong, and we.
Karen is your wife?
Yeah, she is now.
Okay, good.
And yeah, so that's why. Getting
I was getting ready to cover for you, mate. I was like, ooh, okay, right.
Getting into Wollongong Uni for exercise science kind of influenced that as well, and moving out with her was the first step, and then
And so you met Karen at university?
No, I was 16. I was 16 when we met. And
right.
Yeah, so went through the rest of high school, and then moved out together as soon as I finished high school, and then went to Wollongong Uni. And then sort of worked, stayed living in Wollongong, commuting up to Campbelltown every day. And then my first job was working at a busy clinic in Hobart that was it was a very intentional decision. It was working for John and Im, who were both ex kind of lecturers and tutors at the BSO. And I was really interested to learn from them and also get lots of experience because it was a really busy clinic. And I met some great practitioners down there and had a huge range. Hobart's really cool because it's a major city. So you'll have you'll go from treating a high flying lawyer to a blueberry farmer within the 5 minutes.
The same day.
And it was I got really exposed to a lot of range of different problems. And that sort of really helped. And I just wanted to be super busy. So I was working like five big long days, of sort of 8 till 6 each day, and seeing on all 30-minute appointments. So it was quite a big week, big 60 to 70 patient per week volume for a year. So I came back kind of with some of my colleagues that were seeing 5 to 10 a week. So I feel like I came back with a huge volume of data that I'd kind of and of experience. And that's what, and this is when Karen fell pregnant with Ella. So at the same time, so we kind of wanted to be closer to family, and that's why we started Necessity Health.
Good decision. I want to just pause there on that point that you made about, I guess, the volume that you were treating, the 60 to 70 a week. And I mean, in today's world, people look at that and go, wow,
Think I'm
that's
crazy.
like huge.
Yeah.
You're crazy, man. I don't think you're crazy. I think you probably took it a little bit easy. I think you could,
Yeah. Well, I did. So John would do the same. He was, I don't know. If John's listening to this, he'll correct me. But he was no spring chicken. He was 60 something in the shade, and he was doing 6 days of that, 8 till 6, with a 60-minute break. So there was like, I think from memory, it was 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, back to back. So it was 20 a day. And so that would equate to, roughly over 100 patients a week, well over 100 patients a week. But Im was working in Chatswood for a couple of days a week and working in Hobart for the rest of the week. So she was literally working 7 days a week with taking half days off to fly to the other clinics, which that's a whole nother level.
yeah, that would be quite tough. I mean, in terms of volume, and that's not. I mean, I'm probably a little bit of an anomaly. 150 for me a week is like a slow week.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that I treat. It's not for everybody. But most people now are kind of like 40 to 60 a week is like busy, you know. And so the question I wanted to ask you around that is that how much emphasis do you place on time versus volume? Because this is something I've talked to people about, and I think, we see practitioners that are, 10, 15, 20 years practice, but, they're stuck at 30, 40 patients a week. And I see other practitioners who have been practicing for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and they're on 100 a week.
Yeah.
And I see, what value do you put on volume, mate, in terms of the different tissues that you're getting your hands on, not just kind of the same tissues over time?
Well, the first thing I would say that I know for sure is that the more people you see in those early years, the bigger your experience database is. So when someone comes in with a particular problem, you can give them a prognosis and you can give them your expectations, and it's not just based on a hypothetical. It's you've seen that 50 times before, and this is what normally happens when we see this problem, or I can feel how that's really let go. You might be a bit sore, but I'm expecting you to feel instantly better, and I can say that with 100% confidence. Whereas someone who's a recent graduate, they often will struggle with giving those kind of statements confidently. But that's what I can say for sure. The bigger those first few years are really, really crucial to be kind of as busy as possible, to build that real database of knowledge and experience. For the later in the career stuff, I really honestly feel like that just depends on the individual. I've got a good friend of mine that still to this day does 1 hour appointments, and I've also got a bunch of colleagues and friends that do 20-minute appointments very, very successfully. I've trialed it and it just didn't work for me because purely going down. So from we do 30 minutes, I've done 40 minutes, 40 minutes. They both seem to work for me. But it's very individual, and I've seen it work really well with 20-minute appointments. But maybe I think what I do is maybe chat a bit too much. And for me, I found 20-minute consultations, I could get the job done without a problem, but for me, I found it stressful because I was kind of finding it just, that a bit sort of, just always rushing. Whereas I found 30 minutes for me, I could relax, I could talk and do some soft tissue. And that for me, a lot of this comes down to job satisfaction and what you're trying to achieve. If your number one priority is to volume and experience, or if it's money, then the shorter consultations will work. You'll be able to see more people. And for others, it's about not maybe doing as much with your hands, or there's so many reasons why to vary your time. But and I also think that from a volume of hours perspective, it really depends on the individual. And where they're at in life, and kids change everything. They tell you that, and you think, yeah, whatever, and then they really change everything, and then health stuff changes stuff as well. Like I've had a really big health thing happen a couple of years ago, that really kind of changed my perspective on, not changed my perspective, it really forged a new chapter for me and my family and my career. Because I kind of thought I'd be treating hands-on forever. So it's really unusual for me to not have my week dictated by a diary that's in 10-minute increments. My diary has a few appointments here, then it has meetings there, but the rest of the time it's quite open, which is cool. So I would say it depends on if you want to be in. Do you want to learn about business? Do you want to learn about leadership? Do you want to learn about specialty? What inspires you? And this is the conversations that I have with my team now. Like, what are you? There's a certain volume that is going to pay the bills and is going to pay that. The maths of it has to add up. The company needs to make profit for everyone's sake. And if you've got financial goals yourself, then we look at reverse engineering it and going, right, well, if that's what the goal is, then let's work out a way to make that happen. Or if it's unrealistic, then let's have that conversation.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't think there's a right and wrong. Definitely don't think there's a right and wrong, but you're definitely right that, especially in those first 5 years of practice, that if you want to get to a place, especially like yourself, where you say you want to mentor and help practitioners become better practitioners, you have to have had some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to kind of not be a busy practitioner and then try to get someone to be a busy practitioner.
Yeah.
It's just, if you haven't been there and done that, you're not going to have a lot of credibility. And so I would encourage people to understand that volume is just as important as the years that you put in. Like, if you are, especially in those early years, where if you are somebody who graduated at a fairly young age, and when I say young, I'm not talking about 20, I'm talking about even 30 or 40.
Yeah.
I think that's still pretty young. You should be trying to get some volume under your belt so you can understand what that feels like as a practitioner, so that when you do want to transition, you have that experience. I think we're kind of trying to, we just don't want to. I don't think it should be either demonized or not looked upon to kind of increase your volume. So I think, have a look at the years that you've got under your belt, but also have a look at the volume. Have I packed in what I can to kind of be the best that I can? And I think that gives you a good start as a practitioner. I want to ask you about, I guess, we spoke about necessity health and necessity kids, and you told us about the evolution of that and how that started. What's been your biggest challenges in kind of that practice, taking it to somewhere where I guess you're not a practitioner anymore, at least not a very busy one, whereas you're more of a practitioner for other practitioners. Would that be a correct way of describing it?
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. I think my area of personal development, honestly, my clinical practice hasn't really changed dramatically in that time. I think because so much of my experience forged the osteopath that I became. I kind of worked hard through uni and had already really kind of developed a style and approach. If I look back to what I was doing in my first year of practice, it's not grossly different to what I would do now. But probably
there's nothing new under the sun, though, is there, Adam?
No, and it's that whole thing of I definitely approached every case individually. If you came and observed me, you'd probably see me do similar techniques, but there'd be subtle differences. I definitely don't have a pattern of exactly what I do for each individual. Approach each individual, but there's definitely techniques that I find that are very effective for me. But I think the biggest challenge was more personal development rather than a professional development. Or it kind of ties into the same thing as I started a business and employed people and I didn't nail it at all for a long time and made mistakes along the way. And I think I'm now at a point where I've learnt so much about business and people and leadership and development, and that's probably where I'm most proud of my personal journey. Has been the biggest win would be the leadership, to develop into the leader that I am now.
Yeah, well, it's very hard to have professional development without personal development.
Yeah.
Because it's really forged under fire. Like you know, you have to really have some late nights, some tough times that you bounce back from.
100%.
Yeah, so that takes grit and courage and bravery and all those things that they're all personal traits. They're not things that you learn in a course.
Well, I used to have hair, so
I had dark hairs, mate.
Yeah. All of those, those challenges along the way. There's hundreds of challenges.
Yeah. So all the courses that you do, all these business courses, all these leadership courses, they can kind of give you the spreadsheets and all the I guess the nuts and bolts, but the hard stuff, the actual they can't teach you how to overcome that. Like you just either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
Like there's no kind of blueprint for it, and it is a very personal thing. Some people struggle with it for a very long time. Some people never overcome it, and I've seen a few people. I guess you see it online. You see the posts that go online, and they'll say, I've been practicing for 12 years, and I've just burnt out, and I want to sell my practice, and what would be the best way of selling? Or I had a practice, and I just want to work from home and open up a room, and I'm sick of dealing with employees or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that it's not an easy thing. I'm not having a go at those people that they can't do it, but it's really hard. It's very, very hard. And it's not for everybody, And I think having a tough economic time is not a bad thing, because I think there's a lot of practitioners out there who run clinics that shouldn't be running clinics. They should be probably working for somebody else. And we're just quite fortunate, I think, as a profession, especially osteopaths, that you could probably be very busy as an osteopath yourself. You could be a really good osteopath and just be busy and have the clinic run off the revenue that you create. But really, that business is running you. You're not running the business.
Yeah.
And to learn that and to overcome that just takes a lot of grit and determination, and that they're things that you're not going to get in the course. So
it's grit and determination over a long period of time.
Yeah, sustained.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to take a few punches and keep getting back up.
100%.
And so, okay, I want to move forward a little bit, and I guess you discuss your own kind of collaborative approach within your clinics. What would you like to see happen within the profession? Like, would you like to see osteopaths kind of grow into new areas, go into new, forge new? We see it a lot, especially in aged care, NDIS, occupational health. We're seeing osteopaths kind of move into more, I guess, less hands-on treatment roles and more consultancy roles. Is that a direction that you'd like to see that happen for the profession?
There was a poll recently that I was really surprised at how many people had gone into like motor vehicle accident work and other consulting sort of roles. I know that that's really prevalent in the exercise physiology world, but I didn't realise that there was so many of our colleagues that are doing similar sort of work. What do I want to have?
Why do you think they're doing that, Adam? I mean, what do you think the motivation is for that?
Well, I think one of the motivators is that they pay well, and
they're secure.
And there's a guaranteed income that's high. And I think a lot of people, that's very attractive to them. I find it really interesting because I feel like almost everyone that I've spoken to, not everyone, but a significant portion of osteopaths, when I say like, what's your story? Why did you want to become an osteopath? They say like, because it helped me, or because I really like the hands-on kind of approach. So it is really interesting when people get into more occupational rehab or insurance sort of work or aged care. It's not that they, obviously in aged care they can still be hands-on, but I find that shift really interesting, and I don't actually know what the answer to that is.
Yeah. Look, I would suspect that we're not much different than anyone else. I would suspect that most osteopaths probably start off with a passion for helping people. They want to help people. They're generally caring, empathetic, and that's the way it starts. I think the problem that we have is that because it's hands-on, it actually, one of the things that goes unnoticed is this actually requires a fair bit of talent, and it's a natural ability that we don't talk about it a lot. When we talk amongst ourselves as colleagues, we see it. I mean, we see other practitioners, and we know that they're talented. They're just talented, and we see other practitioners, and they're not as talented. Whatever. I mean, you can, but there are some practitioners that are just more talented than other practitioners. There are some. I'm never going to play in the NBA. I've kind of come to grips with that. Given up. I gave up a long time ago. I gave up on.
It's kind of like some people are really naturally good at dancing, for example, and some people cannot dance to save their life because it's a real coordination and it is a physical ability to be a really good osteopath that is quite unique.
It is, but the problem with it is that you can't see, to be a good dancer and a successful dancer. Another really good dancer would have to look at you and go, "You're a really good dancer, and you're going to make it to the next level." If you're going to be a footballer or an athlete or a soccer player, some coaches have to sit there and look at you and go, "You're going to make it. We're going to let you into the next level." To get through university, you don't have to be talented as an osteopath. You can get through, osteopathy. You can get through chiropractic. You can get through a lot of these, professions that don't actually require somebody to kind of sit there and say to you, well, you probably just don't have that thing that you need. And that's okay. That's probably a good thing. But it just opens up.
Another thing it doesn't need to be is that you were the ducks of your year and read everything on every condition possible known to man. With a colleague of mine a few years ago, we actually analysed this topic of why are some people very successful in their careers and others aren't. And one of the gauges that we would use would be basically how busy they were and how strong their reputation was, how much the phone rang specifically for that person. And we kind of tried to analyse and break down what those guys that were excelling were doing and what the guys that were maybe struggling weren't doing. And we kind of created a bit of a training that we went through with our team that we called it the 8 steps to a highly successful career as a health professional. And there's a few, there's more than 8, but some of it's intangible, like some of it's just a connection. So people I feel like one important thing is to have a highly successful career as a health professional. You need to be able to connect with people as well as do good hands-on stuff. You need to be able to listen, but you also need to be able to lead and direct, and give a recommendation with a high level of confidence. And I feel like there was that and a bunch of other factors were kind of.
Yeah, I think that in itself is not, I guess, just strictly about osteopathy. You could be somebody with good communication skills, a good leader, and not be an osteopath, and kind of, and so that's something that's across the board. It seems like it's a personality trait amongst people that have it naturally. Can you learn it? You can improve it. I don't think you can get what somebody has naturally. I don't think you can learn to that extent. Yeah. But I think you could do better than where you probably are at the moment.
Yeah.
So that could be, but then you separate that from the actual natural talent of getting the result in the clinic. Yeah. And I think that's a talent as much as anything else in our world is a talent. yeah, I think that goes a bit unnoticed, and it's definitely. I mean, you amongst all the practitioners that you've seen, you would definitely notice that ex-practitioner is probably a little bit more talented than Y practitioner. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, that's something that we don't really talk about. So I guess you've talked about some of the challenges in terms of personal growth and having that be the catalyst of your professional growth. What took you to Osteopathy Australia? You did some work with them. You mentioned that you did some NDIS work.
Yes, I've done some things for them in the past. I think the one that's probably worth talking about is the NDIS stuff. So they approached me, I think, because I employ speech pathologists and now OTs and early intervention key workers, which a huge percentage of their load is disability. And so
So when were you approached, Adam? When was this?
It was about 2 years ago, and then there was a committee formed, and the purpose of the committee was to basically help. There was a gentleman, I'm hopeless with names. I'm very sorry, I forget his name, who was tasked with writing an application to the NDIA about osteopathy and how it can help people with disabilities.
Right.
And
so from what I understand the history of it, I think the NDIS began under the Gillard government and then was extended was just continued, I think, under the Abbott government. And that's a fair while ago, I think.
Yeah.
What are we talking now? 2000 and...
Well, it was Kevin 07, so I think Gillard
Kevin 07 started it?
Yeah.
Right.
It was around there, 07, 08.
Yeah. So 07, 08, you weren't approached until 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, it would have been about 2023.
Right. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, was there anything there that when you went there and you said, okay, well, let's try to put something together? Did they have some things that they've been working on for a few years, or was it? Was it from scratch? Was it like you said there was an application that had to be handed in?
Yeah, I think I'm not. Look, my understanding from the original kind of early days of the NDIA were that they created the NDIS, and I think I don't think there was much kind of consultation. Occupational therapists have been involved in disability work since well before, heavily involved in disability work since well before the NDIS was created. And so that's why occupational therapists are highly regarded in the disability world. And to a degree, care providers, psychologists, speech pathologists, specialists and things like that. But there's always been a real tussle between medical versus disability over the years, and the spending of the NDIS was exponential, just going up crazy amount every single year.
Mate, I know a lot of physiotherapists that just built their practices around it.
Yeah.
And this was back in circa 2010. So they'd kind of jumped on the bandwagon pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I think like physios would have been involved in disability prior to the NDIS, and I think that's why there was instantly item numbers and rules around OT, speech, psych, physio, and I just think honestly they didn't think about us. Same with chiros, that there's no chiro items, and other professions.
Why would they think about us, Adam? I mean, like
we just don't. I think if we had have been heavily involved in disability prior to that, then we may have been consulted. And I this is my perception. I don't know that this is not fact. This is based on kind of my perception that it just was built, and then it was a thing, and then everyone spent the next 5 to 10 years working out the language. There's a whole one of the things that we talked about on the committee is that it's actually, it would be a little bit of a dangerous thing to just suddenly have osteopaths suddenly have access to NDIS items, and it's a whole system that is quite complicated, and it really ideally needs people to understand how it works. So me and basically everyone on the committee was sort of really advocating for osteopathy to get a seat at the table, at the NDIA table. But we also had concerns about if we were to be successful, we would need to look to train osteopaths on how to use the NDIS language.
Yeah, well, you need to be familiar with the ecosystem.
You've got to make sure that you comply with all the rules and regulations. There's billing requirements, there's service provider agreement requirements, there's communication, there's record keeping, there's cancellation policy. There's so many things that are very specific. It's heavily documented. Even just the item number document is like 100 pages long because of all the different items of all the different types of services. So yeah, that was my biggest concern. And look, it was a great committee. There was a really some really experienced. There was a young osteo who was who'd been a carer. There'd been people that had worked in disability. Like, it was a really good panel. I feel like the document that we produced was really good. But at the whole time, I just was also kind of having a realistic expectation that, well, I think it's worth trying really hard, and I think we should try as hard as we can. But I'm also realistic that exactly what you said, they're trying to cut funding. I think we're trying to, jump on something that the ship has well and truly sailed, and they're actually trying to reduce spending. So I'm not at all surprised that it's been over a year and we still haven't heard a response. Yeah,
it seems like that when it first started, it was a bit of a gravy train and people jumped on it, and there's obviously a lot of stories about rorts and just people kind of abusing the system
100%.
And so forth. So I guess the governments have come in and looked at the overspending in that scheme and said, well, we can't cut that. And I guess rather than try to figure out where all the fraud is happening, it's easier to just cut out professions.
No, they're doing that too.
Well, we hope so. You'd hope so. I think
they're 100% investigating.
Yeah.
They're starting with like the big ones. So supported independent living is a big one, and the care providers are the big one. Where the allied health are considered much lower risk. So for that reason, getting NDIS registered is hard, but it's easier than the care providers and SIL and things like that.
And so is that pretty much the extent of what you're involved with Osteopathy Australia with, and the length of time that you're involved there?
Hello everyone, just a quick break to give you some information on where to best find me. The first place is the private Facebook group called the Successful Practitioner Pathway. I've set up this private group as a place where practitioners can go and get tips and advice on how to best accelerate their practice and improve their clinical practice skills. The second place to find me is at successinpractice.net. That is where the Success in Practice signature program is housed. You can find more information about me and how I can best help you achieve success in your practice. So, the two best places, the private Facebook group, the Successful Practitioner Pathway, and successinpractice.net. I will link to both those places in the show notes, so for more information, please see the show notes. Now, enjoy, and back to the show.
I was on another committee. I'm trying to remember what the purpose of it was.
What was your motivation? I mean, when you look at kind of doing work with Osteopathy Australia, what was your motivation there? Like, is it just about giving back to the profession?
Yeah.
Do you like to, is it something that you enjoy doing in terms of just getting into more the committee side of things, the organisation planning, and that? Is that something you enjoy?
So I've been involved in a couple of things, and I think the motivator was always to help. I mean, being in Wollongong now, I'm a bit removed, and there's no education, like you said, there's no university, so there's definitely no teaching. I'm not interested in research and being a researcher. So I think for me, where I felt I could help was in some of these committees that they formed, because I'm also very time poor, and I wanted to help but not sort of overcommit myself. So helping with those things was really cool. I I feel like the work with the NDIS committee, that I was able to kind of bring some to the table, just because of I've had to learn the system through experience with my daughter, and then I've had to learn it to a deeper level to build, significant amount of money and comply with all of, and have a deeper understanding of the system. So I wasn't sure how many osteopaths would have the level of understanding that I do about the NDIS.
Yes.
I still learn about it. I'm certainly not an NDIS expert.
It keeps changing by the sounds of things too. So
I just thought that my input might help.
Yeah, and did you find that Osteopathy Australia was a place that you could go to and kind of have an impact there? Did you find that it was set up for you to actually have your voice heard and the things that you wanted to do be executed and actioned upon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good. And so you would obviously recommend that for people to get involved with that association and kind of put their hand up. And
it's really the only way that we can move forward is by banding together and drawing on everyone's different experiences and trying to move forwards with the profession. It's come a really long way. I'd love to see it thrive. I'd love what you said. I'd love to see, particularly in the states where there's no other training facilities. I thought it was great that Queensland got one, and there's talks about WA, which I think is fantastic. New South Wales is such a huge population that would greatly benefit from the course. Like, I don't think we could talk about that till the cows come home. Like that's a probably, like you said, I feel like that needs to be every effort that we have. Yeah,
that should be all hands on deck, that one.
Yeah.
Any time we've seen any massive changes or kind of leaps forward in the profession, it's always been driven by osteopaths, and so we need the volume of osteopaths here in Sydney because it's such a large market. I don't think there's a suburb in Melbourne or Victoria that doesn't have an osteopath in it now. So could you imagine that here? And so we'll just lift the profile of the whole profession, and I guess we just need to have we need to make a better effort. Like we can't blame anyone else anymore. We can't say, there was an old course and we had a bad rap from it. Like at the moment, we just need to set a big goal. We need these big, bold goals. I think it's not unusual to want two courses probably in Sydney, one in Sydney and one in maybe more rural New South Wales. And I don't think it's unreasonable to want a course in every other state in the country.
Or even Canberra. I mean, if you had one in Sydney and one in Canberra, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, one in Sydney, one in Canberra, and then every state and territory deserves a course, and we just need to see the whole profession kind of grow from the ground up.
Yeah.
And so, I always talk about the strategic planning that's involved with either associations or with regulatory bodies, and it always seems like it moves really slowly, but I guess you never know what's behind the scenes. And I just wish that we knew a little bit more communication, a bit more, this is what's happening, this is what we've tried to do, this is where we've been successful, this is where we've been unsuccessful. And so I think it gives the membership a little bit more of an insight, especially when they go to vote in elections, and they can kind of then say, well, we need to move in a new direction, or this direction is working really well. And then obviously candidates can kind of come in and say, hey, this is what I want to do as a board member, and this is where I'd like to go with it. So we just need a bit more, that needs to be invigorated a little bit more, and I think, that needs to happen from the ground up. But I'm really glad that you were able to actually do what you wanted to do within that organisation, because I think it was probably a little bit too late when you came on. It would have been good to get somebody like yourself maybe around the mid-2010s That would have been probably a better time, but it is what it is now, and we hope that we can get a seat at the table. But I wouldn't I wouldn't hold my breath.
No, nor would I.
So moving forward, I guess as a profession, you've seen it kind of go from, you said earlier, from a lot of the hands-on. You really enjoyed the hands-on aspect of university training, and although the hands-on is still a big part of what we do, what would you really like to see osteopathy retain and protect? And maybe you've already talked about the hands-on stuff, so is there anything else that you'd like to see osteopathy retain moving into the future?
It's a hard thing, isn't it? Because it's that whole concept of like embracing new times and new research and new thoughts but at the same time not forgetting where you come from. It's a bit like culture, I guess. And I'd love to see, some of the fundamentals of osteopathy retained into the future, and just I think. The thing that I think is really unique to us is that problem and puzzle solving that to the level that we do, and because I work with different types of practitioners, and we've got students that come through from different sort of courses, and I think what I notice is that the way, like you called it, the osteopathy lens or the osteopathic lens, I really like that. It's like it's got its own lens that it's really hard to put into words. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the osteopathic lens. But at the same time, I feel like we get really.
Are you talking about the principles of osteopathy?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, that you can put words to that. They have, it's not just a lens. We have principles, and we're guided by those.
Yeah.
And most of us, when we look at patients, we might have different pathways, but we generally get to the same place.
Yeah, agree.
We have different modalities that we use to kind of unwind those things, but I think most osteopaths.
I would love to see nothing more than the people that have different approaches put their different approaches aside and work together to move things forward.
Yeah, great. And I guess, what would you like to see maybe not retained? What do you think we've had that's held us back a little bit? Or maybe some challenges that you think are in front of us? Is there anything that you've seen in the profession and you go, you know what, this kind of mindset really restricts us from growing as a profession? I mean, it's not all roses, right? It's not all.
No.
We do have some work to do. What do you think? Where do you think that work lies, Adam?
I think the big thing is just the internal conflict. Like, I'd love to just see the level of internal conflict from within the profession dissipate, and just acceptance of people have different.
Where do you see that internal conflict? Is it amongst the maybe direct versus indirect? Is it amongst?
Yeah, there's that. There's the contractor versus employee. There's the indirect versus the direct. There's the practice owner versus the new grad. There's the there's the two practices down the road from each other that won't talk to each other, and there's just so much of that. And I feel like we'd be stronger if we work together.
Definitely, I think you're right there. I think those challenges that you described, though, seem to be not unique to osteopathy.
Correct.
I don't disagree with you. I think part of that too is also, I think we're getting a little bit soft. I think we're getting a little bit. When I say that, I mean we're kind of like becoming snowflakes. Like everyone's getting upset at everyone over everything. Like, okay, if I talk to you, if I have a conversation with you online, first of all, I would never say something online that I wouldn't say to your face. Right. So that's the first thing I think that people need to understand. And so, but the second thing is if I critique something, or if I say, you know, if I hear someone say something and I say, well, you know, I don't agree with that. I think this way. You don't have to be upset.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, you know, it's okay. Like, it's, you know, we're getting, and again, this is not unique to osteopathy. It's happening amongst, in the broader culture. You know, we're getting a little bit sensitive over the smallest thing. And I think people need to remember that they have families at home and important people around them and friends, and what you do online is not really what your life is. And so if somebody disagrees with you, it's okay. It's, you know, no one's, I find this whole, especially, I'm not talking about anything else, but especially within our profession, within our kind of, you know, online landscape especially, I really find it hard to believe, like when you hear about bullying, you know, oh, this person bullied me online. And I'm like, are you serious? They bullied you online? Like, you just switch off, just turn it off. You know, you don't have, like, it doesn't make sense. You know, what could they say about you as an osteopath? That they don't agree with a concept that you have, that they think that you're practicing incorrectly, that they think that, okay, like, you know, I don't know why that is becoming something that people see it as now it's bullying and this, and we've got to have rules against it. I would much rather see an open platform. This is one of the reasons why I've got this podcast. I'd rather people kind of have an open platform, agree and disagree with each other, and often not, it's the disagreements that actually lead us to some of the breakthroughs. I had George Stillian on the podcast a little while ago, and we're talking about the foot, and we see things differently, me and George, about that. And that's okay, and I've learnt a bit from George just from that conversation that we had. And he disagreed with me on some things, and I'm like, okay, I hear you, George, and I've kind of changed my view on some things about that. Now, I could kind of take that to heart and go, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's just, you know, rubbish or whatever. But you got to have that. That's the growth mindset, is to not to take things personally and to kind of, you know, grow from some of that. I'm all for kind of respect and making sure that you're saying things in a respectful way. But everyone has their style. Everyone is a bit blunt. You know, and you read something online, you can read it in a, you know, sometimes you change the full stop and the comma, and you put it in a different position, and it just reads a totally different way. And so it's really hard to kind of understand the tone behind somebody's voice. And I think that's part of it. You're right. There are some disagreements that people disagree between contractor and employee, and people disagree between indirect and direct, and you know, it's okay, all right, disagree. Like, it's, you know, like, I don't know why people are losing sleep over that. Like, why are people finding that they have to be banned from certain places, or, you know, like I know a few people that I'm banned from this forum because one of the people said I was bullying them because I didn't agree with a concept they had about osteopathy. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? You got banned? Like, really? Like, what is this? You know, circa, like, are we in East Germany in 1952? You know, like, it's not that serious. Like, you know, I think we're taking ourselves a bit too seriously. And so, yeah, you are right. I think that we are stronger together, but we also have to have this kind of, you know, that tension that we like in tissues. You know, when you feel a tissue and there's no tension in it, we don't see it as being healthy. I think there has to be a little bit of tension there. We have to allow that to happen so that we can actually evolve our ideas. Anyway, so that's my input on that. It's one of the things that I've noticed happening quite recently, actually. And you see it also a little bit. I had a bit of a chuckle with Cliff Butler on the podcast about anonymous posts. You know, when you see, you get on the forums and this, and the person's posted anonymously, and it's like, it's not an anonymous post because they're trying to protect somebody. They're just asking a question about a case, you know. And I'm like, well, why are you posting anonymously for? It's just a case, you know. We're happy to help, you know, but I guess people just want to be, and that's okay. People want to be anonymous. I get it, but you know, it's like, take responsibility for what you say. Like, it's, again, I would never say anything online that I wouldn't say to somebody's face. but that one might be a bit old school. I think maybe it's a generational thing. Who knows, mate? I want to, I guess, finish off by asking you where you'd like to see two things. Where you'd like to see your own practice grow in the next 10 years. Like, what are your hopes for the next 10 years of, I guess, Necessity Health and Necessity Kids? And more broadly speaking, what would you like to see? Where would you like to see osteopathy grow in the next 10 years?
Well, I've been thinking about your first question a lot lately, and I feel like for me, for this next period, I actually sort of got all of my team together recently, and I said to them, I had every intention of standing up in front of you and really giving this really inspiring speech about the future, and painted a future and a clear path of what the direction that this company's heading in. And for the life of me, I've thought about it for weeks, and it's just not coming to me, which is really unusual for me. I've always been like really sort of forward vision focused, like real on, like my wife calls it ADHD, I call it entrepreneurial brain. And I stood up in front of them and said, like, I actually don't know exactly what the future holds, and I don't know exactly what the vision is, which kind of was a little bit scary. But I said to them, the great thing is what I've realized through this process is that my vision doesn't matter anymore. It's not just my vision, it's all of our visions. And so I'm really excited to see what the future holds for the future of the Necessity Group, because we've got an incredible team, and I'm sort of not confined by a 10-minute schedule every week anymore. So I'm really interested to see. My priority is really to try to spend as much time down at Lake Conjola as possible, and time on my boat with my kids, and at the beach and stuff like that. And I want to try and provide an exceptional work environment for my team, and I want to really help my local community. And I think that my business has a natural growth, and I want it to be sustainable and natural growth. I really don't want to be in a tunnel anymore. I don't want to be always looking for the future with my foot flat to the floor, trying as hard as I possibly can. I actually am deliberately taking the foot off the pedal and really starting to enjoy the moment a lot more. So that's my kind of 5-year plan, if you will.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we can't all be Elon Musk and want to go to Mars.
I don't want to be Elon Musk. I don't want to go to Mars. Yeah.
I know, but you know what I mean. Like, there's
exactly.
only so much we can do with what we're given.
Yeah.
And to have a place where your practitioners can thrive, and to be an integral part of the community. I mean, it seems like you've kind of done that, and just you got to keep doing it. And
exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can keep growing, and I guess you could get to a point where you could get bought out by maybe a larger group, healthcare group, if that's what you want. But it may not be what you want. So
yeah, well, right now I'm really enjoying working, in the role that I'm in, and helping the team, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, great, fantastic. And in terms of osteopathy, in a broader sense, Adam, if you were the czar, the king of osteopathy, and you could just wave a wand and take us forward 10 years, what would you like? Realistically speaking, what would you like to see osteopathy achieve in the next 10 years?
I would definitely like to see more courses. I would definitely like to. I mean, I've had young patients that have come through that have kind of inquired about how do you become an osteopath, and they really, really want to, but it's really constricting. If you're from Wollongong, or if you're from Sydney or Newcastle, definitely. Or maybe not so much further north New South Wales, but certainly southern New South Wales, or even Sydney, it's a huge undertaking to go. You can't even do an undergraduate course here and then go and do a master's for 2 years somewhere else. It has to be like 4 to 5 years where you completely uproot your life and relocate. it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
It's a huge level of commitment. So
You're right.
I think, making that barrier a lot smaller would be a really, really good thing to give. There are local people here that want to do it, but they end up going and doing other stuff because that barrier is too big.
Yeah.
So that's probably, that's a really big one. And I think with that will come opportunities for like people from all over the country that are maybe interested in teaching and interested in the more academic side. It'll provide more opportunities for. I think a lot of it thrives around that, and the more people you're getting doing it, the more diversity you're getting, the more interest. And like you said, there's that kind of enthusiasm, and that I feel like that is a crucial part.
That's the driver.
That momentum.
That's the driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And just like your own practice, it's like, having that volume, really improves you as a practitioner. So having the volume of practitioners as a profession improves, what we can do as a profession. The doors that open up to us. If we ever want to be involved in a hospital setting, if we ever want to be involved with better imaging rights, if we ever want to be involved with disability. I mean, there's a reason why we're not getting a seat at the table, and so it probably has to do with the fact that there were only 3,000 or 4,000 osteopaths in the country. If there was 30,000 in the country, they'd probably look at us a little bit differently. And if a whole bunch of people were screaming out, "We want osteopaths," like if your reach is there, governments look at you, health funds look at you, doors open up, and so. You're right. That's the big thing, and I'm glad that we're on the same page there. Adam, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I know we had some technical things happen earlier on that you overcame, so I want to thank you for that as well. And I know you were busy today and kind of rushed in to do this. So staying along with me, for everyone else, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Success in Practice podcast. Welcome back to season 2. So we'll be putting out an episode. It'll be either weekly or fortnightly. I haven't really decided yet, but we'll take that as it comes. Have a good evening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, Sami.